Hello, welcome to another SolidWorks Electrical video. In this video, I sort of want to show sort of the pitfalls of downloading and just sort of accepting manufacturer parts the way they come in from the sort of databases that are available out there, as well as how to get what I would call compound components, parts that have more than one piece to them in here so that we can accurately reflect that on the bill of materials. And sort of the simplest version of what I'm talking about when I say compound component is a fuse with a fuse holder. So if we think about it, I'm going to go to schematic. I've got my standard. This is the same project that I've sort of been working with, so it's a mess. It's not like something I could ever deliver because I got bits and pieces everywhere just for demo. But I'm going to drop a disconnectable fuse holder in here. Okay, so a disconnectable fuse holder. And as far as our bill of materials is concerned, when we go to order the parts to build this machine, we have a fuse holder. We need two parts there. We need a fuse holder and we need the fuse. And it's really simple, frankly, to get it in and get it working. But it's not necessarily so clear cut to get it in here correctly just based on the information that we downloaded from the vendor. So I've got a lot of stuff that I've downloaded from those databases that I talked about in a previous video. So we need a disconnector and a fuse. Let's start there. Search. I need a disconnector and a fuse. So again, I mentioned as we're searching sort of for manufacturer parts, class and type are the things that will sort of derail us the most and limit. Like, look how short my list is. There's only like a dozen things there. If I open this up to all, it grew. You can see it pop in. It grew by one or two. But then again, class is changing things. So if I go to this top level fuse disconnector, it'll give me everything in that class. And notice how long my list is, right? So we need a holder. And I'm just going to grab, that's going to be a 3-pole, right? It shows me the circuits that are in it. There are 3 fuse disconnectors. So that's a 3-pole. There's a single pole right there. One fuse disconnector circuit. So I'm going to grab that, just double click, and now it's in here, right? I got a fuse holder. I need a fuse, so I'm going to switch classes again and jump to fuses, which I've also downloaded a bunch of. I've got a bunch of Weidmuller stuff, a lot of Bussmann. This was a CC fuse holder, so I'll just grab a CC fuse, just the first one in the list. Notice the type. This is why type, if this was on base, the fuse comes in as an accessory. If this type here was left on base, all of that disappears because it's not a base, it's an accessory. So I usually just click them to all and find what I want. So I'm looking at my whole list. But now I've got 2 parts associated. So when I drop that component in, excuse me, when I drop that component in and go to generate a bill of material, I'll get both components on the bill of material. Right? So I'm going to select that, sort of locks it in. Notice though, there's a problem here. So this part, right, FB1C30, has a normally open contact circuit in it. By default, my fuse disconnector symbol has a fuse disconnector circuit, right? So I don't sort of have what I need there. Now this is green because I did sort of fumble the video. This is a restart. This is green because I added a fuse disconnector to the fuse. I'm going to cancel out of this, not insert the symbol, and show you what I mean. Library manufacturer parts. I will jump to that fuse, assuming I can find that fuse. It was this one, right? So I added a circuit here, a fuse disconnector circuit. Okay, that made it kind of happy. If I look at the very next fuse in the list and show there are no circuits, all right, all of these Bussmann fuses came in with no circuits. I like, for reasons I'll get into, I like the circuit here to be on the fuse. It sort of helps later on another pitfall that I'm going to show. There's no easy way to do that in bulk. There just isn't. Like, I can do certain things. If I select a bunch of these and right click and go to properties, certain things it will allow me to change the type, manufacturer, right, class, that stuff. Certain things it will allow me to change. It won't let me change current rating because they're all different. It won't let me change caliber, which is like the CC, the J, what size it is. It won't let me change those things. It also won't let me add circuits in bulk. So to get those circuits in there, you kind of are stuck doing it one at a time. Coming in here, circuits, add, fuse disconnector, two contacts so that the symbol is happy, and hit OK. Now that one's got it, right? So that's one of the pitfalls of importing. I imported probably this morning 100,000 manufacturer parts across various things for planning ahead for doing more of these how-tos. That's one of the pitfalls is the circuits aren't going to line up right. They're just, I mean, they're frankly not. They don't seem to, when they create those libraries, think about what sort of default SolidWorks settings are or SolidWorks symbols are. So that's one pitfall. We kind of have to. We can also, I mean, frankly, we can also adjust the disconnector symbol. So if I close this and drop one in, uh, well, let's not even. I'm in the manager, so that works too. If I go to that fuse disconnector and go to my single pole, I can also in here change this to normally open to match the Allen Bradley part. The problem with that is that now this is going to look for normally open circuits. What if I bring in a Cooper Busman fuse holder and they actually used the fuse disconnector circuit? I don't know that. So it better off to leave the symbol, and then match the manufacturer parts. Unfortunately, because a lot of times they'll come in with some of them have some real weird ideas about what kind of circuit you'll be using. So again, one of the pitfalls, one of the things that it's unavoidable when we were importing parts. Now, if we're creating the manufacturer parts as we need them, create it with whatever circuit you need, right? That's probably the simpler way. Like I said, I downloaded 100,000 parts. I'm never going to use, a fraction of all the parts I downloaded today. But if I was creating them as I need them, sort of by definition, I needed them, so I'll use them, right? Uh, but there's another downfall here. So let's go to schematic and insert a symbol. I'm going to drop that same symbol in. It's already selected. I'm going to go through and I'm going to select the same fuse holder and the same fuse. So again, I need to go to the top level of fuse disconnector. I want to get rid of base, all, and grab that single pole CC fuse holder, and then go to fuses and just grab that first 1 amp fuse. Actually, you know what? Let's grab one that doesn't have the circuit in it, right? You can see now that it's red. It's red. There is no matching circuit. If I select this one, it's green because the fuse has a circuit that makes the symbol happy. So it doesn't really matter what we do. I need to double click to add it down here. So I've got both parts now are associated with this symbol. Okay. If I click OK, I now get a fuse disconnector. And when I go to generate a BOM, I'll talk about that in a future video. When I go to create the bill of materials, both of these parts will show up as required in the bill of materials, even though there's only one symbol for them. I can assign multiple parts to a single symbol. It's kind of nice. Problem though. So this thing, these schematics, they're going to live in the door of the cabinet. They're going to live on a server somewhere. Someday the machine's going to go bad. Something's going to break. And a maintenance guy is going to grab these schematics and come out here to replace a fuse, right? He's looking at this schematic, and what is shown here is Rockwell Automation part number 1492 FB1C30. That's the fuse holder. That's the fuse holder. If a fuse blows on this machine, it's not going to be the fuse holder he needs to replace. It's going to be the fuse. That leaves us with a problem. Right? I would much rather, like, on the schematic, I do not care what the part number of this fuse holder is. I care what the part number of the fuse is for schematic purposes, for that reason. Troubleshooting, I've got it in my hand, staring at a machine. I can grab a right fuse based on my documentation and pop it back in there. Especially as I get older, my eyes aren't so good at looking at the little indentation on like the little glass fuses, the little engraving to tell me what current rating they are. So schematic telling me a part number helps. But we don't have that. There's an option we could do. So if I edit the symbol again and go back into the manufacturer part, like normally, under normal circumstances, whatever's first in this list wins. right? So if I move this up, I should get an update, but I don't. I don't. Um, I don't because this symbol is pulling information out of whatever the base part is. And remember, if I modify this again, symbol properties, manufacturer parts, all those fuses came in as accessories. The fuse holder is the base. So I have to modify this guy. If I modify this guy and make it a base, okay, I normally I would update the catalog. It would go back and update that manufacturer part for everybody, but because I'm on the education edition, apparently it can't retroactively update the catalog that way. That would be my normal workflow, change it forever with one click. Unfortunately, I can't do that. Now I have Busman FNQR1, right? Now I've got the fuse part number. That's what I care about because, again, troubleshooting, if a fuse blows, the fuse holder's fine, right? Odds of the fuse holder burning out, okay. But the fuse is the bigger thing, and now it's right here on the print, right? That part. So the fuses, in order to get this information, really should be bases. They came in, though, and they're not. In the manufacturer part manager, though, that is one of those things I can, if you remember, change in bulk. So I can grab all Busman fuses, and I'm going to go ahead and do it now and never have to do it again. I'm doing it right here on video, so it'll always be that way in the future. I'm going to change all of these fuses all at once, properties, and it'll probably take it a minute to, it has to sort of process what it can and can't allow me to change, right? I'm just going to change them all to base. That way when I drop them in, I can get their information, okay? I can get their information. And now they're all done forever. They're changed in my manager. So if I drop another one of these guys in, I mean, let's do it. Schematic, drop another fuse holder in. And I'm going to grab them in the same order just for demonstration purposes. Again, I want to go to the top level here, grab that same Allen Bradley fuse holder, and then go to fuses. Now I can leave that as base because I know now that all of the actual Busman fuses are base parts. I don't have to change it, but I'm going to grab that same part, that same fuse, select, okay. All right. I got the Rockwell part number again because I grabbed the fuse holder first. Simple. I did it on purpose, honestly, to show. But all I have to do now that this is a base, move this up, and it updates. So as long as the fuse is as long as the fuse is a base, number one, and first, it'll show us the proper information. Now, this portion of this video is getting kind of picky because I don't like the way this displays. I don't like this symbol. I always modify this symbol. Actually, I modify most of the base stock symbols for my own use. So I'm going to actually open this symbol, open. I'm going to modify it. So first of all, location and function, they're fine. They can stay there. I don't use them much. These are like voltage and current ratings. If we dig into these attributes, insert attribute, it'll tell you what they are as you expand. First of all, anything blue are ones that are already used. We can always use them again, right? I can click OK and I can use, location more than once. Blue is just there to tell you that it is in there already. If I get it out of the way, the TDs are harder to find. Usually they're buried in like user data. Description isn't one of them. TX, translatable data, that's not even one of them. Should be maybe here. Yes, there's the TDs under manufacturer. So current rating is TD1. Size is TD3. Caliber is TD4. Value 5, whatever that means, is TD5, right? For this symbol, I mean, really, I want a couple of things. Like I said, I wanted to. I know for a fact in my head when I use this symbol in the future, I am using it and I want it to display the fuse's information. I could care less. Now, on bill of material or panel layout, absolutely, I want the fuse holder. Absolutely. Here on the schematic, I only care about the fuse's information. So, that said, Size, I'm not really going to use. Caliber, I want it to display that. I want it to display CC. I want somebody looking at this to know they need to grab a CC fuse. Okay. TD1, current rating. I want that. The difference is just this is the picky part. So, first of all, value 2 doesn't matter. I'm going to get rid of TD2. TD2 is gone. TD3, size. I don't really use it. It's gone. TD5, I don't even know what value 5 means. It's gone. So 2, 3, and 5 are gone. I'm going to delete them. 2, 3, and 5. Right? I'm going to just delete them. Right? Gone. Just that fast, right? This one, the amperage, the current rating, I don't like to see at the bottom. I like to see that in the fuse. Um, and I'm also going to, sort of modify, if I double click, I can modify the text and sort of center it, right? So now it's centered and vertically, and I probably also want to shrink it a touch so that it fits well. Half might be a bit much. Let's try that. Just a little. We'll shrink it a little. I'm going to hold, well, actually, let's turn off my snap so I can, so I can put it where I want it. So my snap's off, and now I'm not sort of forced to snap to my grid. And this is sort of an eyeball game, getting it where you like it. But that looks somewhat in the middle of that thing. That's where I like that to be. These I like to have centered. So I'm just going to change the justification of those to be centered. And then, of course, move them so that they're actually centered on the symbol. This tag can be lower. I also like it centered. Again, we're deep in the weeds of being picky, but these are changes that I always make on a fresh install of SolidWorks Electrical. It's also, I haven't been, um, sort of traditionally, I haven't been smart enough to do this, but a cool part about this software that I don't talk about much is I don't have to make all these changes on a fresh install because you can archive your entire environment, with all of the changes you've made and import it into a fresh install. The same way that we import manufacturer parts. We're basically importing our SolidWorks Electrical setup into a new install, which is very nice. I'll be honest, I forget to do it almost every time. Almost every time, so I end up doing these changes every time I install. So, but I'm going to update this now, this symbol, and show just to show like uh, identical. Do them all. Right. So now the 1 amp is in the fuse holder. I still don't have the CC showing, and that probably doesn't. That probably is due to the fact that if I look at that part, and I'm going to look at it in the manufacturer part library, um, manufacturer part management. If I go in and look at that fuses, look at this. It probably has to do with the fact that the caliber is not defined. Oops, right? Uh, we can either call it CC or class CC because it's labeled. Um, we could probably just call it CC. Okay, is that a thing? That's not a thing we're going to be able to change in bulk again. But if I now have to, in order, so I can't just update the symbol to get the CC to show now, because I changed the library part. But the part that's tied to these symbols, the fuse that's in these symbols right now, is sort of frozen. Any changes I make in the library don't automatically carry over. I have to open the component, manufacture part right here, and I don't actually, can I just refresh? I don't think I can actually refresh. If I wanted it to update existing ones, I would have to change this, or I could delete it and pull in the part with the correct information. So now it's there, CC, right? I may not like that. Like if this were a full drawing, I try to keep these symbols set up, like edit them, so that all of the information that I want will fit on one line. Like this is encroaching on the next line that I don't like that because then things get a little too busy. It gets hard to read your schematic. So I would probably further tweak this, shrink fonts, rearrange some stuff a little bit. But in a nutshell, that is sort of what we're talking about. Now, when we go to build a bill of materials, we have the fuse holder and the fuse. That'll be in our bill of materials. Okay. And the cool part is when we go later to do a cabinet layout, like, well, for instance, I think I have one. I have one that I started in a different video. So again, scale is funny, but I now have fuses over here, right? Each fuse, you can see, lists two parts. For my cabinet layout purposes, I'm going to ignore the fuse, and I'm going to go with this. This is sort of the, I'm going to go with the fuse holder. This is sort of the default symbol they want to use, and I'm going to drop it in. Now there's a problem because this is like a default scale. It's just a square. Because in the manufacturer part, again, I imported it, and Allen Bradley didn't bother, or that was that? Yes, that was an Allen Bradley holder. They didn't bother to put dimensions in. That's why when you create manufacturer parts, the dimensions that we went through when we created these in a previous video, dimensions are important because this isn't accurate. This fuse holder is nowhere near this wide, especially compared to an I/O card, right? Height might be okay, maybe, but we need to define that height. And again, that's not a property, unfortunately, that we can update in bulk. So that's another pitfall of sort of downloading hundreds of thousands of parts is we still have to tweak them for the way we need to use them, right? I'm going to go ahead and call this video there. That seems like a good cautionary tale with some how-to on how to deal with, the manufacturer parts we bring in to give them the information that we want them to show. So again, thank you for watching. Hopefully that was helpful, and I look forward to seeing you in a future video.